Everybody wants you to believe that the world around you is kind, nice, docile. Everybody's got your back. The truth of the matter is, it's not. You are at war with those around you in most things in life if you want to win. You have competitors who want to kill you. You have competitors who want your mate instead of you. The hard truth about the world today is we're still humans that haven't evolved all the way from apes. We are trying to pretend like society is easy, like there is no undercurrent, like everybody wants to be your friend. And the truth of the matter is, that's not true at all. And so today I want to talk to you about what it actually takes to win, the things that nobody will tell you because it's politically incorrect to say them today. But you don't come to this channel for me to tell you the things to make you feel good. You come to this channel to have the life that you actually want. Let's get into it, because 2026 is going to be either a bitch or your bitch. The truth of the matter is, to win, you have to suffer. There is no other way around it. It's going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you think. You will lose friends, but you will also gain them in the end. And it will only be worth it because you kept going. There's a famous entrepreneur by the name of Ben Horowitz, and he wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, where he says the most perfect line about entrepreneurship and leadership. He said, your job as a leader is mostly just getting all the way to the truth. And this video today isn't meant to be motivation. It's meant to tell you the thing that too many people on the internet will not tell you. And there's really 4 things. 4-hour work weeks, they don't fucking work. Everybody is trying harder than you think they are. There is more competition than you want, and most people do not communicate honestly. So I want to talk first about the people and the communication, because we have to live with the reality that the world is not always gentle and easy. Like that we have to be what Robert Greene, who was on this podcast, amazing episode if you haven't listened to that one, that you really have to be what he calls a strategic warrior, someone who deeply understands human psychology, who realizes not all of those who are close to you should be close to you, and who plays the game to win. So most psychologists will say that to be successful in life, you have to have difficult conversations, right? We've all heard that. You have to have conflict. I want you armed for that conflict with the 6 types of people that you will engage with as a leader. And there is this exact type of person, whether you lead your family, your friends, your community, a business. And I want you to notice these types of people when you see them, because you will win less if you do not. The first one is what I'll call the reactive responder. So this is a person who snaps quickly, who's always telling you how overwhelmed they are, who when asked how they are replies, I'm busy, who looks a little frazzled and frantic. You can almost always tell them even by their physiognomy, which is how they look. They kind of give off a little bit of the energy that says, oh, that wasn't me. Somebody else did it. It wasn't my fault. A little frantic like this, right? The second is the emotional empath. This is a person who says, they feel too much. Everyone else doesn't feel as much as they do. They cry in inappropriate moments. They do not fully understand what's going on in their own body, so they project it onto everybody else. So oftentimes you feel scared to bring something up with these people because you know they're going to be emotional when they respond, and so you've got to act like the adult. Then we've got the pleasing pushover. This person wants everybody to like them. They're the class puppy dog. They're always excited about what's happening, excited good, excited bad, trying to figure out what to do next. I think about the guy from The Office Space with the red stapler, Milton, who just wants other people to like him. This person, often called the doormat, because they do get walked over, and unless they change their ways, can often get pushed around. Then we've got the aggressive attacker. This person wins more often in the short term because they're super aggressive. They say everything they're thinking. They push people around. They're kind of a bully, right? We've all met this person. And because society has gotten more polite, the truth though is they will not get away with it forever. Long term, this type of person implodes. They're seen through and people will leave them. You'll notice them by the way they always speak the loudest in meetings, interrupt other people, use aggressive body language postures to push people around, get too close to you. Then we got the constant whiner. And this is a person who is always the victim. Everything is somebody else's fault. Someone is always wrong. Something is always wrong. When you ask how they're doing, they tell you about all the things that aren't going so great, or they'll give you a long oh, it's fine. Now, this person won't succeed big in life because nobody likes to be around whiners, and positive people statistically make more money. Lastly, the strategic leader. This is the rational fighter. They project calm when everything around them is chaos. They downregulate others. They hold firm when they need to. And this is what you want to be if you want to succeed in life. I'm sorry to say this, but don't listen to anybody else who says, oh, you can cry if you want to. Oh, you can just say your truth out loud. Oh, it's fine. No. those people will forever rent apartments and at most get to middle management. They will not have the happiest of marriages. And this is a cold, hard, ugly, brutal truth that if you want to be a real leader, you have to look other people in the face calmly in a time of chaos, completely unemotionally. And when they're upset, still feel like the ship captain in the middle of the storm. Like you are going to get them to the destination that they need to go to. This is what you need to be if you want to win. Half the job of winning is communicating intelligently, is having conversations nobody else is willing to have and having them like they are an easy day at the beach. Because most people will not hold the line. Most people will let their emotions run them. Most people will show you their stripes. Most people never do the difficult things that need to be done in order to have the life that they want to have. But that is not going to be you. What's fascinating is as you become this strategic leader, you'll start to notice which of these avatars are around you. And you'll figure out like, I know how this person's going to react. I know how they're going to be when they sit at the table. I know what their next reaction is. And you'll be able to tell by somebody's reaction exactly what cards they actually have. I had one yesterday. A guy came in all upset. Oh, I can't believe you're doing business with this guy. He lied to me. He cheated from me. How could you do this? He was so overly aggravated. I realized, oh, what does Macbeth say? Thou doth protest too much. What does that typically mean? That guy might be doing a little lying, cheating, and stealing. And so most people will never pause to see the people around them in these difficult conversations, but that is not going to be you. The second thing I want us to bring into 2026 is this. Everybody is trying harder than you think. Like, you will never succeed just because you want to, just because you manifest it, just because you think you deserve it, just because you sit and flow. All of that is total and complete bullshit. How do I know? Because I know thousands of the most successful people in the world and nobody, not a single one of them have said they achieved it through flow state. That is like some craziness on the internet that somebody's trying to tell you while they're actually working way harder than you can ever imagine. They're like the duck on top of the water, paddling like a motherfucker, trying to get you to think that they just glide with the wind. Do not listen to them. Do not listen to the people that post their fancy cars, that show their beach photos every day, that say like, oh, eating a cheeseburger, but with a 6-pack. You're like, no, you're not. You're not doing that. They're working really hard. They're not eating that cheeseburger. And so everybody is trying harder than you think. And there's actually science behind this. So this is called the effort heuristic. So we assume others put in less effort than they actually did. This is from the University of Illinois. And the finding is we all assume that most other people put in less effort than they actually did, that it came easier for them than it actually did. But the truth is often quite the opposite. So like, for instance, I got to meet this famous person who I won't name because, I'm a lady, but, I didn't realize originally when I met this famous person that they wanted to compete with me. We became friends. I thought we were buddies. And they talked about, oh, everything's so amazing. We're growing so much. I've had all this success. And then I started hearing some snickerings around. And it turns out behind the scenes, lawsuits and fraud and things not going well and revenue numbers not real. And so don't believe everybody's highlight reel. Because there's also something called the iceberg illusion, which is 90% of the effort out there, you guys, it's invisible. Harvard and Berkeley did this study on what they call effort concealment, which is fascinating. Humans only see the visible 10% of someone's work. The remaining 90% is usually private, unshared, or hidden, which creates the illusion of this tiny little iceberg when in reality there's all this down below it. And this applies to everything: success, burnout, performance. So everybody else's highlight reel is making you think you're behind. But the truth is, you just aren't seeing their mess. Everybody's got one. You're competing against the top 1% you follow online, not the actual population, by the way. So it looks like everyone else is doing more than you. In reality, you're comparing yourself to outliers. And listen, this is so true. And just go try it. For instance, I saw this thing on the internet where a guy talked about how he used AI to do this crazy task. And it was so easy and AI did it 100% for him. And he made money using a robot. Then I had my entire 7-person YouTube team and I go try to recreate it. What do you think happened? We got $20 and a toothpick at the end of this thing. The AI didn't work. We're shaking hands. We're selling stuff hand to hand. We're going and picking it up. It's costing us more money than it's making us. It's just not as easy as people make it look. And so I just don't want you to think that you are rare because you're not achieving. You are actually like everybody else. There's something called the survivorship bias, which is you compare yourself to the winners, not the strugglers, right? So this is a famous study by Kahneman, which he has lots of econ studies. But the juxt of this one is that humans overlook all the people who quit, failed, burned out, and basically had worse outcomes. And for some reason, we have this bias, probably because it's what keeps us going, where you only see the ones that make it. So I promise you, everyone is working harder than you think they are, even if they make it look easy. Maybe especially then. If you think there's a single podcaster out there that's growing like crazy while not obsessing on it, I've got some fucking news for you. And the news is that ain't true. This is hard. And so there's more and better competition than you want. There's a beautiful truth. Even though there's more competition and even though everybody's trying, most people won't work as hard as is necessary to win. There are also, on the flip side, more people who are playing the game than you could ever imagine. Like everybody will tell you in the beginning, oh, you can go do it. And then what happens? Well, you ask them to buy your product and what do? Not buy your product. This is called optimism bias. Like you think you'll win more easily than the data suggests. And so University College of London had this study showing that humans systematically underestimate the risks, overestimate their likelihood of success, especially in competitive domains like business, athletics. Founders usually think their idea is special or different. Or have you ever heard anybody say, like, when you're like, who else does this? They're like, we don't have any competition. The science says you're delusional by design. This is why when founders come to me with ideas, I almost never look at the idea in our investment business first. We've invested in, 33 companies in one fund, 100 plus companies in our holding company. And I never vet only the idea. I vet the founder because the only real differentiator is you and how much pain you're willing to take. So, when we've looked at 1,200 deals a year, I know this to be true. The real screen happens on the you. So you have to be a little delusional. Otherwise, you won't make it. But you also got to know what's happening out there. You got to know about something called the overconfidence effect, that people think they're above average, which is statistically impossible. Not everybody can be above average, right? Like this is just math. I'm no mathematician, but I think that's how this works. And this is fascinating. There's this study from this guy by the name of Svensson in the 80s. Then it's been expanded and replicated dozens of times. The finding is 80% of people think they are above average drivers. 80%. 68% think they're above average entrepreneurs. Mathematical reality, only 50% can be. So your competitors think they're better than you, and some actually are. And even crazier, we gravitate to the same ideas, which is why when I look at investments and we help members of the boardroom scale their businesses, most of them are trying to tackle the exact same problems in the exact same ways. We have to work really hard to teach our 1% entrepreneurs how to get beyond that. And there's a famous Harvard Business School study called the Startup Gold Rush. And basically it says that people gravitate towards the same hard problems. So founders will do what's called clustering around high status ideas. So you guys could guess what that would be now. 2 letters, AI, right? Fintech, consumer apps. And what does this do? It creates this hyper competition, even when the founders, believe their idea is unique. And so this means if you're in a sexy space, you're competing with hundreds, thousands of smart people. If you're in a boring space, you're competing with less because boring is often not as competitive. Let's go to the math. So this is where the illusion sort of shatters. If you look at how many startups exist right now, let's look at all across the globe, right? So all across the world, 305 million startups are made every year. 100 million new businesses open annually, and there are currently 30 million active startups competing globally at any moment. That's why the nobody else is doing this is almost impossible. In the US, if you're like, well, not in the world, what about just the US? That's 5.5 million new businesses that were created in the US in the last year alone. 10 to 15% classify as high growth. That's 550,000 startups a year entering really competitive markets. And the, number of new businesses, how much has it grown over the years? Well, since 2019, it's doubled. So either way, you have more competition than you want to admit, and some of them are better than you. And so when you realize this, it is okay to fail. It is okay to struggle. You're going to continue to win if you don't give up. But let's be reasonable about what the numbers actually are. If you want to have the life that you want, you've got to look the numbers hard in the face and decide anyway. That's why I want to come to this next one, which is 4-hour work weeks do not work. Now, I've become friendly with Tim Ferriss. I think he's the man. The book changed my life in many, many ways. He's a stud, super brilliant. And I think I'm very lucky to get to talk to him. That said, I don't think he actually believes that 4-hour work weeks are real. It was his theory and a framework and a formula for sort of escaping corporate monotony and not doing dumb work and leveraging your intelligence. But here's what the math says. 85 to 90% of businesses require active involvement. And startup and small business data sets show 85% of early stage companies require the founder to be daily involved in operations. Even the U.S. Small Business Administration and businesses under $2 million in revenue, you want to know how much the founders work? On average, 52 hours per week. That's 13x more than 4-hour work weeks. And if you go, okay, what about this thing called passive income that everybody is talking about? Well, according to the Federal Reserve survey, only 11% of Americans earn any passive income at all. And of those, 75% comes from real estate, requiring some management. So truly passive monthly income represents less than 1% of all income earned in the U.S. Translation, the passive income ecosystem that lots of people online talk about, it applies to 0.5% of the population for probably some small percentage of their total income. I'm not saying you can't do it. We have lots of different revenue streams. And in the boardroom, we teach people about getting lots of revenue streams in their business. But with zero work ever, I don't know. I haven't met it yet. And if we want to go really deep into this one, most of these automated businesses, you want to know what the failure rate is for them? 97%. The autopilot online businesses, like e-commerce, dropshipping, affiliate marketing, mini digital products, the data, most of these stores never actually make it. And what's fascinating about small businesses that we've realized over the last 5 years is most small businesses fail. 90% of them fail. And the reason why they fail is 2 reasons. They don't have an operating system, and they don't have advisors telling them where all the potholes lay. And so what we realized after talking to 14,000 entrepreneurs is if we could give founders an operating system plus advisors who had already been there, done that, we could increase the success rate of startups across this country. And so we did that in something called the Contrarian Boardroom, where we teach a couple hundred entrepreneurs per year who are on a path to do at least 7 figures or more in revenue, how to grow their businesses profitably, consistently, sustainably, with an operating system and advisors. If that sounds like you, go to the link below or go to contrarianthinking.co and apply to the boardroom. We are here to help entrepreneurship suck less and make more money. Now, what's fascinating about the data that I was talking about, Shopify says 95% of stores, they never make a single sale. Amazon Fulfilled by Amazon, so Amazon FBA, 90% fail rate. Or they plateau at, let me tell you how much, $100 a month in profit. So I think the truth of the matter is we overestimate how much money people are making. We do social comparison theory, where we compare our worst to other people's best. The University College of London says the brain defaults to upward comparison, meaning you compare yourself to people doing better. You ignore the tens of millions or, hundreds of millions of people doing worse. And like you and I, we use the wrong measuring stick. So I want you to remember this. Don't compare other people's highlight reel to your reality. And when it makes you think you're behind, remember you're actually not. Keep going, because the only way you fail is if you quit. But I promise you, some days you're going to want to, and 2026 is going to be your year if you do not.
Do we really have an obesity epidemic? Is it really a fat problem? Is all the issues that we are seeing, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, is this all a fat problem? No, it begins in skeletal muscle first, decades before.
I view fitness as the same thing, where it's a piece of hygiene. It has to occur, otherwise you're decaying, you're dying.
If you can change fitness from a habit to hygiene, you can do it just as frequently as you brush your teeth.
How long do I spend in the gym? 50 minutes. 50. I am in and out. There's no way I'm spending more than an hour ever.
One of the things that's really terrible about getting healthy is that it feels so hard and overwhelming.
If you're not having fun with it, you're doing it wrong.
Do you make more money if you're fit than if you're fat?
The reality is you're only ever going to go as high as your physical health and wellness.
Hey guys, Codie Sanchez back here at the Big Deal podcast for those who don't just want to be rich, but want to be free. Do what it takes to get there.
I love this podcast because I love talking to friends about how they made their millions and helping business owners solve their problems. It's fulfilling. I love sharing all the secrets. But when I can't meet in person, there's only one tool I use. It's called Riverside. Riverside ensures I can talk to someone anywhere in the world, recorded in 4K, so the quality of the video matches the quality of the humans you're listening to. Riverside records separate audio and video tracks so we can easily cut out those awkward interruptions that are my least favorite part of interviews. interviews. They have in-platform editing software based off a 99% accurate AI transcription. And if that's not simple enough, they take AI one step further for their show notes. It summarizes your entire content into an SEO-optimized description and chapters all automatic. Saves me a ton of money. So you can use Riverside for podcast interviews, panel discussions, presentations, webinars, more. And best of all, it's simple. Try Riverside for yourself with link in the description. Use code CODY for an exclusive discount. I get a deal, you get a deal.
What to do if you, like me, want to be fit, but sort of hate the entire process? My husband, former Navy SEAL and card-carrying member of the Six Pack Club, weighs in. We're going to hear from the fittest woman I know, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, on food, fitness, and strength. You're going to want to listen to this one. If you want to know what humans who have real jobs and don't just work out for a living actually do, this episode is for you.
Bring the band in. Let's go.
So, first, let's welcome my husband, who hates the fact that I bring up all these details about him and post what he calls titty pics of himself, aka six-pack pics of him without a shirt on. Chris Peckus on the pod today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
I think we're going to have you on a pod a bunch of different times to talk about things like AI, since you do stuff with AI for the Department of Defense. I think we'll also have you on here to talk about relationships and how to not marry your wife and have a happy relationship.
Nice.
Today, we're going to do that.
Strong.
But today, I want to obsess on one thing, which is, you've helped me completely change my relationship with getting healthy. You always talk to me about how to do it in a way where it integrates into your life and doesn't take over your life.
Yeah.
You have this very annoying saying that you always tell me when I don't want to work out, which is, do we want to be good white sharks or do we want to be great white sharks?
Amen.
And I thought I could impart some of your wisdom on others today. So let's get right into it. I think I know the answer of this, but if you could only use one piece of equipment to get fit, what is it, why, and how should we use it?
There's one cop-out answer, and that's your imagination. Quite literally. But I mean, truthfully, right? I mean, you don't need a gym to be fit. You don't need the environment to be fit. You just need to care a little bit. But if there's an actual piece of equipment I could take with me, it's a kettlebell. I mean, you don't have to be creative with the exercise, basis for which a lot of people across a long, long time have made fitness. You take them with you everywhere. They're easy to go around. What I've actually done a few times is I've researched a place. Maybe they didn't have a gym close by. Maybe I was there for 3 or 4 days, didn't have enough time to hit a proper gym. I've Amazon primed a 53-pound kettlebell to hotels before.
People 10 to 20 pounds.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever works for you, right? I mean, they come in different denominations, right? Mostly through kilograms. But I found it's an incredibly effective tool. You can train every single part of the body. At a certain point, you just keep going and don't put it down. And after 15 minutes, you will hate your life, but you will appreciate yourself.
If somebody doesn't know how to use kettlebells, you are a crazy person about programs and taught me a bunch. Favorite 2 or 3 kettlebell programs and maybe favorite 2 or 3 kettlebell moves, because you also taught me you don't need to know that many of them.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that the best programming out there is Eric Lehia's. Goes by Primal Soldier. Trains here out of On It ATX. He shows how to kind of chain everything together, right? It's not like you're just doing one exercise for a certain part of your body and isolating. You kind of flow through the entirety of it, right? Because at the end of the day, strength and fitness both rely on your ability to connect the strength of your upper body and lower body through a strong core.
And what about 3 movements?
3 movements. I think the tried and true kettlebell swing is a fantastic one. I think the windmill, it's a little bit more of an advanced one, but it really gives you a lot of hip mobility, back mobility, strengthens your shoulder girdle and your core. And then I also love the snatch, right? It's an explosive full body movement. Explosiveness has really been proven to be an incredibly effective tool for a lot of people.
I taught my mom.
Did you really?
Yeah, Lori killed it. Another thing you talk about that changed my perspective on working out was this idea that habits versus hygiene and how you see fitness will change the entire way you do fitness. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think habits are something that's associated with a decision that you make to become better at a certain skill, right? Or something that you want to do less of. Habits are kind of a reinforcement. So your habits around, let's say, working out is the fact of going at a certain time or following a program or seeing a coach, a whole different means of what all those variables do to encompass that piece of hygiene, right? Hygiene is the aspect of you will decay or die if you don't do it, right? If you don't brush your teeth, like you're going to have nasty teeth and it's going to break down. Same thing if you don't wash your body, bacteria. I view fitness as the same thing where it's a piece of hygiene, like it has to occur. Otherwise, you're becoming sedentary, complacent, and you're decaying. You're dying.
So essentially, if you can change fitness from a habit to hygiene, you can do it just as frequently as you brush your teeth.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be as complex either, right? It can be as simple as brushing your teeth 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Maybe you don't have the amount of time to do it many weeks. Like on layovers sometimes, we will get up and we will walk for the entire hour and a half between it. Like that's a significant workout still, especially for a lot of Americans who don't get the, required or requisite 10,000 steps in a day.
You know what I was thinking about the other day is it's overwhelming. All of these different things we can do, and fads and workouts. And sometimes I just think I'm not going to do anything because it's too much. Mm-hmm. And maybe I've already had all of the motivation that I can stomach for the day on work, family, small decisions. And it gets to fitness and it feels like I'm wrung dry and there's nothing left. And so I thought of this idea of what if you could whisper in the ear of a person that you love dearly one thing that if they were to do it, you think it would have the biggest impact on their fitness and health possible? What would be the one thing you would whisper in their ear?
I'm going to say two things. I think the main one will be about nutrition. If it doesn't occur naturally, don't put it in your mouth. And the other one for really the aspect of getting fit and maintaining fitness is don't overcomplicate it. We both have a very close friend. She had a really, really big struggle with her ability to get to that point. She chose a program. She finally did it. And after 7 months, right, she lost double, maybe triple digits. And her response was, I'm so mad I didn't start earlier because it's not complicated.
I don't think she'd care if we said that publicly. That was Katie McCrary, who's a dear family member. She got at 75 hard. I've become close with Andy Frisella over the past, a year, let's call it. And she told me she got on 75 hard. It took forever for her to get there, but once she got on it, she stuck to the program. She just did what the program said, and her life completely changed.
Yeah.
And she's kind of never looked back. One thing that you had told me before, too, is sometimes it can be overwhelming, this idea of is it natural or is it not? But you also said something to me, which was look at the ingredient list of the food that you eat.
Yeah.
And if it has ingredients that you cannot pronounce, it doesn't go in your mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it leads to a little bit more intuitive eating as well. It's easier to make binary decisions about what to eat and what not to. If you get down to micros and macros all the time, you're in this like constant balancing act, right? Of like, well, now I have to consider like 7 or 8 different variables rather than just like a very easy, okay, I know about how much I can eat. I know about how much I can burn. I know what quantities I want of each. Now, do I eat it or not? Very simple.
You always tell me that there's one word that really matters in the gym. And if you do this one thing, that it's kind of hard for you to be fat.
Yeah.
And I'll let you say what the word is. But I thought about it because I remember we were in the gym and Andrew Huberman was in the gym too. We were all trying to be cool because we're all fans of his podcast. And so we're like, don't look at the really big tattooed guy. Anyway, you're doing your thing, which is a series of wild workout moves that I wouldn't touch. And he comes over to you. And I just saw your head get like bigger and bigger by the moment as you like winked over at me. And he started asking you about your workout routine. Like, what are you doing? What's this? Interesting. Can you show me how? And so I think that lends itself to this idea of like simple things can make the complex seem so much more intense. But what would be the one word that describes it? And then how do you actually define that word that changes everything in the gym?
Yeah. By the way, I think I was like way cooler in that instance. And I don't think that there was any head swelling going on, but I have incredible mad respect for Andrew and what he's done and what he's doing for human physiology and spreading the knowledge around it. The word intensity, I think it has a lot of meanings to it. When I look at it in terms of like an intention too, like you're not checking your phone. You are strict within your reps and your rest. You're strict within your time under tension, the amount of time that you are actively moving the weight in one direction or the other.
Wait, pause on that.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, you taught me, I wasn't seeing really much change in my arms. And as you get older as a woman, sometimes your arms, so like it can be a pain point. If you guys have ever seen those like turkey arms, that freaks me out.
Yeah, I know. You have great arms.
Yeah. Anyway, those freak me out. I don't want them.
I don't want you to have them either.
Well, anyway, so you taught me and I was like, God, I'm doing all these bicep curls of movements, but I'm kind of going like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. And to overly simplify it for you pros, you're going to laugh at this, but you basically said, on the way up, you want fast twitch on the way up. And then you want like like 1, 2, 3. Explain that, because that's time under tension, but a lot of people might not understand.
Yeah, I mean, you explained it perfectly. I learned it mostly from, I follow Marcus Philly programs. I really, really, really like his stuff. He keeps it entertaining, engaging. He hits muscle groups. He keeps the central nervous system guessing, does great priming, great mobility stuff. I really, really recommend his stuff.
Wait, can we put a caveat on that?
Yeah.
I feel like Marcus Philly is amazing, but I was overwhelmed when I did his.
So fair, yeah.
You say it's more for like a little bit more pro than a Cody?
No, that was like 3 years ago. And now he's tailored it to where he has some distinct offerings where it's like, if you're a top tier CrossFit competitor, you got a program, right? If you're short on time, you have a program. If you're short on equipment, you have a program. I follow his Pillars program, which is like a 4-day-a-week lifting that does splits upper, lower, or upper push, lower push. That one I think is very, very accessible for a very large part of the audience. Beginner or pro. He has great movement cues as well. He has videos that go along with it. And, form is such an important part of it, right? Never sacrifice form. And time under tension is also, in my mind, part of form. And so I learned a lot of time under tension under him from his tempo count. So your ability to stress the muscles, to put them under tension, will increase muscle definition and size, at least in my experiences for me, right? I'm sure there's studies that say the same or different, but that's what works.
Why does nobody talk about that? Like, I've been training with trainers for years and working out, for like 5 days a week for like 15 years. And nobody talks about time under tension for us normies. And it's mostly just like reps and weight count.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like anything else that kind of evolves to the services industry sometimes, right? You're paying somebody else because they've figured out the complexity of something to make it simple for you. So while they might not be prescriptive in their tempo or time under tension, a good trainer will ensure that, you're maintaining that burn. But I think these are also just changes that we see across fitness and physiology, right? Like there's these huge swings back and forth. And I think it helps the fact that there's a lot of people studying it and a lot of people who are arguing and debating also the effects of it.
Yeah. I also think like when it comes to intensity, when I see you working out, another thing that's not so scientific or tactical might just be you are drenched by the time you're done working out. Like independently, it kind of looks like you were hanging out in a sauna while simultaneously doing a workout. Another thing I learned from you is like, if you're not actively sweating during your workout, if you're doing like the Instagram girl workout, those bitches probably are doing BBLs. They're not getting their butts from squats. If I could take one other thing away from intensity, it was actually bring it. And if you're not sweating pretty intensely by the end of your workout, that's maybe an easier JV way to measure it.
I think you go even further. If you're not sweating when you begin your workout, like you're not taking it seriously. Like if your warm up doesn't have a lot of intention behind it, and if you're not really paying attention to it, like how long do I spend in the gym? 50 minutes, 50. I am in and out. There's no way I'm spending more than an hour ever. That's warm up, workout, cool down, and stretching. Like you're not there to screw around. You have people say, kind of in the hustle culture, like 1% better every day. It's like, yeah, like 1% harder every day gets you 1% better every day. So why would I fall below any threshold that I've had before? And that's not saying like go and overtrain and be crazy about it, but push yourself to a certain extent, right? Even on those days where I'm not going as hard, right? You're still sweating. You still have significant output. You're otherwise wasting your time and you're regressing.
Let's talk about our Sundays, because you also told me that, which is that Sundays are a recovery day. Talk about what we do on Sundays, how we incorporated that into, both our fitness regime and also our relationship a little bit.
Yeah, I think Sunday for us is like just a major reset day. I think that's the day that we're really good about doing things that give us energy, because the other 6 days out of the week, we're kind of giving it out, right? We're kind of doling it out. It's being taken in a few ways. I mean, not to go through our entire habit, right? We get up, we do a long walk, take the dog with us. When it comes to the fitness part about it, right? Like we sauna, we cold plunge. There's a bunch of different modalities that you can do for recovering. We roll out, we get some movement. Like we create space, we decrease inflammation, and at no point are we trying to raise our heart rate like super high. We're detoxing. Right. And I think we're just kind of hitting that reset button that physiologically and mentally really helps us set like intention for the rest of the week as well. Because if you're constantly just giving and giving and giving and giving, if you start, at a high speed in the mornings, you're probably going to continue on that high speed for the rest of the day. So I think that what drags on into the rest of our week as well.
Yeah. I also think it's nice because sometimes, it feels like everybody's working out all the time, doing these really aggressive things. And you kind of taught me that rest is just as important as activity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you're never overtraining, you're under recovering.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to that point, we get up, we do the, coffee with a little bit of mushroom stuff in it, some MCT oil.
That's legal mushrooms, lion's mane, over the counter.
Right.
I know it's Austin, but still.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, the kind of hippy dippy coffee. Then we go for a long walk, like 5 miles, sometimes with our ruck, which I hate. Then we go to the gym, typically sauna, cold plunge, and roll out. And that's it. And it could be like a 2.5 hour evolution. Or you could take longer if you want to.
I think something that you failed to mention that I think enough people don't do is like create space in their body, right? Like we do those weird things on the pole that get your spine up and moving around, right? We kind of like loosen your scapula from the rest of your back and your shoulders. We open up our hips. We kind of like rebalance a lot of the muscles as well. I think that's hugely important because that kind of goes into the like mobility, flexibility thing. I've taken people through that as well, like taking Khalil through it a few weeks ago. Incredible shape, I think in his late 40s. And he's like, I've never moved into parts of my body like this in my entire life. And I think that's the point of it, right? Flexibility, mobility, enable longevity. And that's a big proponent of it.
For people that sit at their desks all day, how do you stop back pain and the tech neck slumping over so that you don't have that?
Yeah, I mean, there's posture cues. I do a timer, as you see that I always have, 40 minutes. I get up, I go and do something else. There's a lot of different movements that you can do as well to free up your low back, hips, and shoulders. Hands behind the head, lean back, opens up your T-spine, gets your shoulders. Split squats, right? How many times have I shown you that you're feeling a little twinge one side or the other? You literally do split squats, 20 aside, and it quite literally resets your hips.
Anything else?
There's a bunch of stuff. But I think when it comes to those are the two big things that will address those portions that hit people most in their bodies.
Okay, how about food? We kind of pay attention to it, but also you're a garbage bin and you eat more than anybody I've ever seen before,
Fair,
which is totally fair.
Yeah, I'm a 2 burrito guy at Chipotle.
Yes, you eat a lot. And yet, like, you never lose your 27 pack that you have. So like, how do you think about what to eat? What are the parameters that we have around it? And like, what is a core part of how you feed me?
I was lucky that I grew up in a home with cooks, people who were in the restaurant industry for a little bit. So, and like a Mediterranean diet. So everything was about ingredients, freshness. Those habits kind of continued on in the rest of life because I realized kind of garbage in, left garbage out, what occurred from it. Now, when I think about it, journaling and an elimination diet was kind of the basis that got me to this point where I could now make those simple binary decisions by, again, figuring out the complexities early on. So knowing raw cauliflower and kale gave me a lot of inflammation and they ruined my stomach. Understanding how your body then responds and recovers from the food you eat, like you journal about it, you A/B test it. I mean, there's a lot of different apps out there. There's wearables that enable you to do it as well. But once you figure those fine lines, you just have these categories where you definitively know that these types of proteins, these types of vegetables, these types of starches and carbs are best for me individually. And so for us, I find it easy to do the 80-20, 80% farm to table, non-dilutive ingredients, right? Or non-processed foods, and then kind of 20% of a little bit more of whatever.
Donuts.
I love every 2 weeks. I probably eat how many? Half a dozen. I order them. I don't let anybody in the office eat one. They're mine. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like I'm also going to burn that off. And I think about it in the day, right? Like I'll probably have my higher carb and higher protein meals in the afternoons because you're going to burn off breakfast. You're going to burn off most of lunch. Your dinner is really what's going to decide what nutrients repair your body. Studies might show differently, but this is what I found that's intuitively worked for me.
When we first met, I was struggling. I was like working too much. My stomach hurt all the time, probably drank too much. And, if you guys listening have ever felt like that, you're like, God, I kind of had like these bags under my eyes. You feel like you kind of have some stomach issues. I hear that people on the internet call this hot girl.
Oh, yeah. You got a hot girl, she got a tummy issue.
And that's so bizarre.
It's correlation. Highly correlated.
I sort of felt like I looked older back then.
You look way younger 7 years later.
This is how we stay married.
I'm serious. And you're more fit.
What I think a lot of it, what surprised me was, you clinched it for me, which was that I wasn't getting enough collagen. Talk to them a little bit about like what changed from eating with you and what we eat now that changed.
Yeah, I mean, we are a very animal-based diet household, heavy on proteins. I try to get a gram per pound a day. I think you probably get a little bit less. We have a little bit more fatty meats, right? I think there's some stuff out there, especially some studies that have shown the increase. We introduce bone broth into our diets as well, which is like extremely helpful. And then we use highly bioavailable fats and everything that that are all of our cooking additives, right? Extra virgin olive oil. We use a lot of duck fat, all of those things, right? I think bioavailability is a big thing too, right? That's the transference of nutrients to the body, right? Because you'll eat some things and you'll get 5% of it because most of it's trash or it's highly processed. Where there's others where you have a lot higher capability. So like for instance, darker vegetables, right? We always know that things that are colored on our plates will usually be an indicator of a healthy diet. And that's why it's like there's 4 different shades of potatoes. Try every single one of them. They're going to give you a lot of different benefits each.
You should drop the recipe for them for that steak that you make, plus the Japanese purple potatoes with the truffle oil and asparagus that you make on the side.
When you look at like Japanese sweet potatoes, ube, incredibly nutrient dense, a lot of antioxidants in them.
With umami.
And with the seasoning. No, they're great, but it's simple, right? Like it's not complicated. We can do it in a few minutes. Usually like come home, turn on the oven, go shower. Oven's ready to pour it all in. It's easy.
You basically stopped my hot girl stomach issues with bone broths, with an elimination diet that taught me that I was highly lactose intolerant, getting rid of a bunch of vegetables that I thought were good for me and adding a lot of dark vegetables instead. And then with getting rid of most processed foods. And so we're not doctors. I don't know, but that at least worked for me.
Also, we found out you were lactose intolerant only after we moved in together.
Thanks for sharing that with the internet.
Last thing though on that too, not all vegetables are bad for you the way they're prepared sometimes, right? They're better if they're cooked for a lot of people. There's the whole Ayurvedic science about it. That's an Indian method of eating, which is super cool too.
Love that. Okay. How about, I want to talk a little bit about you're prepping for rim to rim to rim.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell them what that is, why you're doing it, and what you do at least once a year? Because I think that's cool and you made me do it too.
Rim to rim to rim is the starting, it's in the Grand Canyon. You start at the South Kaibab Trail, go to the North Kaibab Trail, and then you come back down 2 different routes, Bright Angel. It ends up being about 42 miles all in all, about 11,000 feet of elevation gain. So you're starting at the top of one side of the canyon, going into the bottom, and going back to the top, back down, and back up. It's an extremely, grueling, physically challenging event, and it's one of consequence. And I think that is a key to have these major challenges, right? You'll hear them popularized, called misogi, kind of the Japanese way of challenging oneself. With it being of consequence, right, there's accountability to it. So I think it's a little bit more all-encompassing, right? You have to be consistent about your preparation, your training, and you have to have a lot of intention behind it as well. And I find that I have a lot of self-introspection through kind of 3 different methods. And one of those is doing extremely difficult, highly challenging things of consequence. You're going to the Grand Canyon, where there's no service after about the first mile from each side. And what are you going to do? Have somebody carry you out 5,000 miles in the middle of the night, like through the other side? By the way, this is all done in one period of darkness. So some people do it as fast as 12 hours, takes some people closer to 20 hours.
Yeah, I think we actually first came up with this idea of misogis from Jesse Itzler. And you also have me do one of these years. So I went to Mount Baker one year, which I regret and never want to do again. And don't at all feel like I learned only through suffering, but I did in that instance. But I thought it was really cool because as a couple, I'm coming with you on this one. I'm not going to do the full thing. I'm going to do a shorter hike because I'm not a masochist. But I do think that having some component of doing really hard things, not just individually, but together, is maybe rare for couples these days.
Absolutely.
But is really special for the 2 of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's similarly in where, we've kind of intertwined work lives a little bit as well too. I think it's great. I get to learn how smart and capable and really good at life you are. And I think I see that on the physical side as well. Like you are, what does that have to do with it? Yeah, you are. But like what's the tie in there? Keeping each other honest. It's a key to good relationships. Said no one ever. I mean, it's a truth, right? Like you get to see that your partner can struggle, has struggled, will struggle, and they'll make it through themselves. They might not always need to depend on you either. And again, the self-introspection, like you learned a lot of different things. You probably had appreciation for all the stupid, tough things that I was, had to do or that I'd choose to do.
Let's do the rapid fire. 10 fitness or health things that you can't live without that other people could really benefit from.
Nutrient dense supplement like AG1, kettlebell, weight vest, slam ball, rumble roller, recovery device, the assault bike, jump rope, a program. It's going to keep you honest, metal, shout out to Pantera, and clean water.
Clean water means not plastic, not sitting in plastic and spring.
We could absolutely go down the rabbit hole on that if you want, but
It's 60 seconds on water because I know how strongly you feel about this. You have concerns about water contamination and how water is stored. What are like the 3 to 5 things that you did that you think other people might want to ponder if they care about their water?
get your water tested. And then from there, you can do a comparison on what you want to eliminate from your water sources and what products can do that. We have like just a very simple under sink filter that takes out the majority of chemicals that are now found in our drinking water. Don't drink from plastic when I don't have to. Store things in glass. Keep them away from the sun if they're in plastic. If it doesn't taste right or smell right, don't drink it.
Also disgusting. When we pulled out that filter the other day, water is really dirty. You also put a filter on our showers and stuff.
I have, yeah. I mean, anything that touches your skin, right? As much as you can eliminate it, I would.
And they're pretty cheap. Like how much were those filters?
They were pretty reasonable. The one under the sink, I think it wasn't the cheapest. I think it was like maybe like $200.
Okay.
I put the filters that come every 3-4 months. Hydroviv is the company. Highly recommend. And the ones on the shower head and faucets, you can just quite literally screw them on.
It kind of sucks, but apparently we're not dying of toxicity. So, hey, win-win. What is on your never do I ever to-do list that's health-wise?
Ooh, ever eat an MRE again? Farmed fish, there's parasites being taken out of them, seeing what's happening there. Food that's been sitting in plastic or comes packaged in plastic for a long time. Microwave. We do not use the microwave in our household any longer just because it's shown to denature a lot of the nutrients and make things less bioavailable, right? Overcook things. It's a whole host. Turn the oven on for 5 minutes at 200 degrees. You'll get there, right? Cooking with margarine or processed heavy stuff, no seed oils. I know people will say it's not as bad for you as it can be, but at the end of the day, like we might as well be optimizing for ourselves. Vitamins that don't meet a functional nutrient requirement that you have in the body. I've seen people who just go overboard with nutrients and supplements. And at the end of the day, I think it's causing a lot of effects that are harmful rather than good. And then putting anything on top of your body that similarly is like chemically saturated, right? Be careful the sunscreen that you use, the moisturizer, even the soap, right?
Let's talk about some fitness fails so that people don't think that we're good at this all the time.
Yeah.
For instance, TMI internet, when I ate only liver and beef hard bison and weird stuff that you told me to eat.
The ancestral blend.
Right. And I was smelly. I smelled bad because of it, which nobody told me was a byproduct. So careful if you only eat liver and bison and ancestral organ meat. That's one. What other fails have we had that were like, that wasn't necessary or we didn't do it that well?
I was like big on the oat milk train, like in almond milk, like 2017, 18, like listening to Health and Fitness magazine or something. When I started to realize what that was comprised of and how it was made, I removed it quickly. And I mean, it's something you can feel day in and day out.
Paul would be happy, Carnivore MD.
Yeah. And then like,
Actually learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
Created notes. I mean, I think now because of the stuff that we talked about originally back when he was here more often in Austin, from, the eating the mangoes to the eating the papayas frequently to having lots of beef in the diet, but like getting accustomed to the space, we're like, that actually all tastes great now. Now, he's an animal. We don't go to that degree. It's been really helpful, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because something looks healthy doesn't mean it is. If you get chicken and rice and vegetables from like Panda Express, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily trust in the supply chain that got it there, right? Whereas, kind of get it from your local places, you're probably more than likely going to have a very different outcome on what it does to your body.
Chronic pain is debilitating. And, if you have that right now, if you're struggling, if you feel like there's been no solution for your back pain or your hip pain, that's where you were. For years, you had chronic pain that you had no solution for. You went to doctor after doctor. They wanted you to get surgeries, and you ended up fixing a lot of it. Can you explain What was wrong with you? What did you do to change it? And what might other people learn from that after they've consulted with their?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a problem probably starting towards the latter part of my military career, and then it exacerbated low back and hip pain, a lot of it, to the extent where I had a knee injury, and I thought it was an isolated knee injury, not realizing like a bad hip and a weak glute was causing a bad knee injury, right? What I had started to discover is going to physical therapists, and all of them thinking it was a core issue. It was a core issue. I found one, because none of them were working, sitting in a chair, looking at my phone. He walks up to me and he says, "Don't look up, don't move." And then he said, "Pay attention to your body right now. How are you sitting?" And I was like, all the way on my right side, left shoulder jacked up, middle of my spine moved the other way. That right there is probably causing half of your pain. He's like, so now we're going to start looking at movement patterns and alignment patterns. And I didn't realize, I always thought, I mean, you saw me, I would stretch like crazy trying to get it to go away. And it was imbalances and inflammation were the two things that were the biggest problem. And what he had taught me was smash, strengthen, lengthen. So I realized I had weak muscles, which caused a heavy imbalance, right? Your hip flex, your lower back is not caused, your back pain is not caused by your back most of the time. I've found it's caused by weak glutes and too tight of hip flexors. So focusing on these areas and strengthening them, which actually gave them more freedom of movement, right? When they're weak, they're stiff. So smashing it, right? That's why I said rumble roller earlier. I always go through that stuff as often as possible. Every single day I roll out. You find the way to isolate those areas and those smaller muscles, which can then relieve all of the connectors around it, and then thus give a little bit more relief for those areas, and then lengthen, right? There's flexibility and mobility, and you have to treat them, I think, separately. And then so targeting those. Not a joke. I think probably within 3 weeks, it completely changed. And you remember, if I was on a plane for over 3 hours, I couldn't work out for like 2 days. I was overdoing it. And then the inflammation piece, right? I think there's a lot that goes into inflammation, but reducing that at all costs was a significant helper as well.
You know, one of the things that shocked me the most was I would have lower back pain just from sitting too much, not even anything crazy like you jumping off of boats and helicopters and whatever. You would teach me that the pain is often not where you think it is. So if your lower back hurts, it's actually because your quads are too tight. If your, one side of your lower back hurts, it's actually because you have too tight of IT bands. And so sort of realizing like what area to pull on, I thought was interesting. Also, ladies, I think this is a hack for anybody in a relationship. You could tell me if you think that this is right or not. Giving your man like a Theragun massage on your legs and back, which is like really not hard because you basically are holding this thing and it's doing all the work for you. Like, how many points do I get for that? I get so many points.
An innumerable amount of points. Yeah. They're stacked up high.
Yeah, and I also think like you've helped me think about how to integrate health into our relationship. So like, as you can hear, a lot of times I think in my old relationships, it would be like, well, it's us time. So we're going to go drink or we're going to go eat somewhere or we're going to watch TV, which is going to be more sitting. And you kind of said, wait a second, us time can also be us getting fit, us having recovery time, I would never have thought about giving Theragun massages to my significant other while we're watching something. Or right now we stretch in the evening. So like next time you're watching a TV show in the evening, Chris watches something called Ramwad. Basically, it's just stretching. It's like 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's now rebranded to pliability.
Whatever. There's a ton of these. You could pick one off of YouTube on the internet for free. Like basically having a stretching program. Mm-hmm. So instead of you just like watching TV with your significant other, trying to get the two of you to stretch at the same time. And so there's a lot of these like twofers that if you're living a life that is real and you have a lot of work going on and you don't have time to do 37 other things, how can you do them simultaneously that blends so that your relationship gets better, so that your body gets healthier, and so you have more time as opposed to less time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few of those that we do. And I mean, like for everybody out there listening, I think, everybody we surround ourselves with understands this, but we're up early. We're up at 5:30, 6 a.m. most mornings, and then we're charging until 8 to 10 at night, right? Full energy for most of the day. A few of those things are, like you said, like we can send out emails, we can watch a documentary, we can watch Netflix while we stretch. Taking a phone call either on a long walk or from the sauna every day, right? Getting in the cold tub, right? That's fun, like little challenges for each other as well. When we meal prep, it's kind of nice, right? Open a bottle of wine, have a glass, we'll cook dinner, but we'll also cook the meals for the rest of the week then. We kind of enjoy that piece, right? And I think the slow forms of life that you can do with your significant other that also have health benefits. Again, it doesn't take a lot more time. It's just integration.
Yeah. And we both drink. It's not like we don't drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really nice, good quality red wine, typically old world because there's less fuckery happening there than they do in the US with pesticides, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, pretty clean as you will from that era. And my take on that, again, being kind of an intuitive eater and drinker, I guess, is cortisol, right, is a huge suppressor of hormones. I run hot, really easy to get, to have a cortisol increase. I find that a glass of wine or a good glass of tequila can kind of maybe get me into that relaxed state, lower the heart rate a little longer. Shout out to DNA Fit that told me genetically alcohol has no effect on me. So,
It's so annoying.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, they're like, it'd be better if you never did. So I'd like to have a few more glasses. Maybe the last thing I'll say is like making this sort of fun. So, one of the things that's really terrible, I think, about getting healthy is that it feels so hard and overwhelming. And we do a lot of things, which I credit to you, to integrate it into the fun zone. So like, each morning we'll get up, we might go do a cold plunge, but he'll ask me, will you be my lifeguard? Which is hysterical because it's like this big, and he's a former Navy SEAL. And so how can you just have these little ridiculous things where every time, we're at the gym together, we don't work out together because he works out so much harder than I do. You do a ridiculous dance across the gym from me, like almost every time. And so I love that you don't take fitness so seriously while taking fitness really intensely. And
thank
I
you.
think it's beautiful.
Thank you. I'm the light of your life.
Yes, you are.
I mean, it goes back to the cause of it, right? If like, I want to be good at fitness, you're like, it's like saying I want to be like good at life stuff, or I want to be a good professional. It's like, professional what? Like fit at what? It's like, be a CrossFitter, marathon runner, be a cyclist, be a gymnast, combat sport athlete, like whatever it is you do, have a little bit of a focus on that. And then the rest of it kind of comes naturally. And similarly on that front, like if you're not having fun with it, like you're doing it wrong.
Next, we are going to go to Gabrielle Lyon. One of the fittest women I know. I call her Ant Woman because we've become good friends. And this little tiny, 5'3", 5'4" thing can throw these huge boulders over her shoulder. We can insert a video here for you if any of you guys want to see that. She has a new book out that's incredible. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend. And I think she's the counterbalance. The fact that there's not that many people out there talking about how women should be fit too. And it's not like anything against the guys. It's just most medicinal scientific studies, as she's taught me, are done on men, not women. And things like intermittent fasting, I didn't even realize aren't great for women in a lot of instances, especially if you're trying to get pregnant, et cetera. And so I hope you enjoy this conversation with Gabrielle Lyon. She's a total stud.
So I want to start with some swingers.
Swingers. Okay, go. Ready.
You specialize in high performers, right? You're a high performance doctor to some of the biggest names out there. There's this feeling by a lot of people that you can't say things about fitness and performance in leadership or business. But I have the question kind of like blankly, do you make more money if you're fit than if you're fat?
I know that's a little bit of a controversial statement, but the reality is you're only ever going to go as high as your physical health and wellness. You talk about business and business as an infrastructure. Your body is the same way. And you mentioned my patient population. I take care of operators, mavericks, innovators, and some of the best and biggest entrepreneurs. In fact, I've been trying to get you to do your blood work for at least the last 9 years. And those individuals at the top, they are fit. They understand that their capacity is dependent on their physicality.
And it's really interesting because, I looked at a lot of your book, which is incredible, by the way, that just came out, New York Times bestseller. You don't have platitudes. This is all backed by science. You have a ton of data that's verified. And some of the studies that I really liked that you had posted in varying ways where there are studies about sedentary coworkers making less money than those who are more active, just how much you sit, which I thought was interesting. And then you also had some quotes about the things that we eat. So it's not just that we need to be fit and exercise, but also you had a line that I loved, which you said, Plant protein is not the same as animal protein. And equating animal protein with plant protein is like saying a Lamborghini is the same as a Prius. They're both cars, they both have engines, and they both get you from point A to point B. But when you look under the hood, they're a little different. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, these are really great questions. Now, why does an entrepreneur care about protein and what they eat? At the end of the day, it's their fuel. And in order to perform, you have to know what you're fueling your body with. And this idea of protein, believe it or not, is incredibly controversial. It is shockingly so because I've been studying nutrition for 20 years. Up until 7 years ago, I would say as the rise of social media and more influencers, Instagram, etc., came out, this is when the controversy really, really started. And you get this mouse with a microphone. Now, I say all that to hopefully open the mind of the entrepreneur who's listening, because they've clearly heard about animal and plant protein. We actually surprisingly don't eat for protein. That's like saying we eat for a vitamin pill. What we eat for are the 20 different amino acids, 9 of which are essential and the others our bodies can make. Animal-based proteins have high amounts of these essential amino acids, which are required by the body for performance, for neurotransmitter function, for muscle protein synthesis, all the things an entrepreneur cares about. You would need 6 cups of quinoa to equal 1 small chicken breast. And at the end of the day, if you care about numbers, then you have to understand these things are not interchangeable. They are not. And yet we hear over and over again that if we go more plant-based, we will be healthier.
What do you think about plant-based protein? Would you ever eat it?
I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, but to say, so it's not that there's something wrong with plant-based proteins. It's this conversation that they are interchangeable. And from a marketing perspective, whoever controls the marketing controls the market. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah.
Commodities are whole foods. Commodities like beef and milk and corn and soy, whole foods. From a marketing perspective, if I say beef, do you know the tagline?
It's what's for dinner.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Nailed that.
All right.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay. Now, wait, not done.
Okay.
If I say milk, what do you say?
Makes the body good.
Okay, close enough, close enough.
Okay.
Milk does the body good. If I say pork,
don't know that
the
one.
other white meat.
Oh, right.
The
Yeah.
other white meat.
Okay.
These whole foods are controlled by the USDA. They are under this jurisdiction of the USDA, meaning that they have very specific rules. All of the farmers, all of the producers pool their money together. Their collective marketing budget is $750 million. All commodities. This includes beef, this includes chicken, this includes dairy, this includes corn, soy, etc. You have processed foods like, if I say Impossible Burger, or you pick an oat juice or an oat milk or whatever it is, almond milk, these are all processed foods. PepsiCo is one company. Its marketing budget is close to $2 billion. That's one of the processed food companies. They are under a different jurisdiction. They can make claims against these whole foods like beef, like milk, like pork. A fake meat company can say, this is better for the environment. This is better for your health. This is more bioavailable. They can say whatever that they want until they're shut down or they get their hand slapped. Versus beef can never say, no, we're a better source of iron. Children need iron. Those children that don't get iron become stunted. They can never say any of those things.
Why can't they say anything?
Because it's just legal.
Interesting.
So the information that we hear is through a funnel of marketing.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, we can play the clip right now, but I was listening to this clip, which was the mayor of New York talking about basically protein and how we need to eat less animal protein. I imagine you have thoughts on that.
The vast majority of food that is contributing to our emission crises lies in meat and dairy products.
Yeah, how much less is he talking about? If you look at the numbers, for women over the age of 65, 40% are deficient in protein, or deficient, they're getting below the RDA, which is the minimum to prevent deficiencies. The average woman is getting 68 grams of protein, the average man, 100 grams of protein. If it were true that we needed to eat less protein, then the question becomes, what are we gonna fill that with? We're already overweight, obese. I mean, it's pretty abysmal, our health and wellness status. So what we're gonna further reduce our dietary protein, the one macronutrient that is absolutely essential and the needs change as we age. You know, one could argue that we don't have overt protein deficiencies. Okay, so we could say you don't have kwashiorkor or et cetera, some of the things that you see in some third world countries. But I would argue that while we don't have overt protein deficiencies in the immediate, what we do have is low muscle mass. What we do have is obesity. What we do have is sarcopenia. All of those are, to me, chronic indications of lower protein diets.
You had a really interesting tweet. You said, we don't have an obesity epidemic. We have a low muscle mass epidemic. And you acknowledge that 39% of the US are obese and 30% are overweight. What do you exactly mean by that? And then how do you fix that?
Yeah.
Which is the entire point of the book.
Which I love. Now, let me ask you something. When you have a business and you ask a question about the business or a problem within the business, you expect to find an answer.
Yes, somebody's fired.
You guys are all fired. This place is really great and it's going to be empty. If you were to ask a question and you continue to get the wrong answer, would you go back and potentially question if you had framed the problem correctly?
Of course.
For the last 50 years, we've been asking the question about obesity. How do we fix this obesity epidemic? Nobody has ever asked the question, do we really have an obesity epidemic? Is it really a fat problem? Is all the issues that we are seeing, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, is this all a fat problem? No, it begins in skeletal muscle first, decades before. Americans are interesting, and maybe all people are interesting. But when you continue to hear something over and over again, for example, obesity, we have to fix this obesity epidemic, we then believe something to be true, even if it's not. At the root, it's about unhealthy skeletal muscle.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, we do this series called America 2.0, and it's a little depressing after you look at it for a while, but the institutions that we have built in this country have allowed for incredible freedom. But anything that gets a lot of power over a long period of time ends up getting corrupted in some way, shape, or form, typically. It just seems to be the state of humanity. And, you know, so we talk a lot here about corporations, the Fed, the government. But one of the areas that I think is hugely important is looking at our food system. And so you could say that's partially corporations, and you certainly could say that's partial government overregulation in areas that don't make a ton of sense. But it's interesting because as a human that is every day just trying to figure it out, the average American is just like, you know what? I'd like somebody to love me. I'd like somebody to pay me, and I'd like some fun in life. You know, that's
and
kind
maybe
of
a foot rub.
Yeah, maybe a foot rub. And they're just trying to figure it out, and it's hard out there. And so when we get all of this information on what we can do to be healthy, even, you know, me who has some resources and time and not maybe a complete idiot on all areas, it's hard to figure out what the fuck do we actually do. Yeah. And I think your book answers that without overwhelming it. It's really great if you want to say, but really show me the science. But if you're talking to just a normal human who's like, what do I do? I mean, I have tried to get more protein in my diet, and it's hard.
It is hard.
And so what are some like really quick actionable things you can do today, even if we're not going to have the muscle of Dr. Gabrielle?
I don't know. You're pretty close. We were doing some push-ups right before this, but what you're saying is actually very relevant, and things are very confusing. There's a chaos-making machine. People don't know what to do, even if they have resources. A very simple, easy way to think about nutrition is, again, prioritize protein. One of the reasons why it's hard to get is because when you eat it, you're not hungry. Because dietary protein, because of these individual amino acids, it kicks off certain mechanisms in the body that it decreases hunger. You're just able to manage your blood sugar better. You're not all over the place. You're able to think and execute and not sleep under your desk. First meal is the most important, and that needs to be a high protein meal, and that needs to be 30 to 50 grams. That could be a scoop to 2 scoops of whey protein, something easy. It could be some Greek yogurt. It could be some eggs. It can't be your oatmeal alone. It can't be your fruit smoothie alone. It should not be your donut or pancake, etc. It is something that everybody could do, and understanding just hitting that high protein at that first meal is critical. And then the other thing is, let's say you're interested in only 2 meals. Then that last meal before you go to bed, actionable items, 5 ounces of steak or chicken or fish. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to be executed.
Yeah. So basically, moral of the story is, like, I heard, because when you say 5 ounces or 6 ounces, I am like the average American that's like, the thing is, I don't know what that is. So how do we make this so stupid simple for people? So you're a high performer. You're like, don't eat cereal, don't eat donuts. In the morning, I want you to grab something the size of this. Or like, what are quick little hacks?
A little bigger than the palm of your hand.
Okay.
So palm of your hand would be, or a card deck. People say that that's around 3 ounces. So a little bit more than that. Easy. Doesn't have to be complicated. The other thing is eliminating chaos. So once you understand what you need to be doing, even if the first time you do it, let's say you track in an app for 2 weeks or a week. People are busy, right? They don't want to do that. Do it for a week.
Yeah.
Figure out how you track your money. You track your, I don't know, the speed that you're going and driving. You got to track your calories. You got to track your macros. Just do it for a week.
So you don't do it all the time now?
I don't do it at all anymore.
Yeah, because I got a trainer and they were like, the thing is, we want you to wake up in the morning. We want you to get on the scale. Then we want you to go to the cold plunge. Then we want you to drink a gallon of water. Then we want you to work out at least 6 days a week. And then you got to track all your meals. Also be great if you tracked how your sleep went. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
No, that is very robust.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing if you could do it. But the reality is my patient population, they do not do that. What they do is I could call Bedros and I could say, hey, B, what did you have for lunch 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday? And what time was that lunch? He would know exactly, because the best of the best limit chaos.
So it's just about repetition.
It's putting in the reps. It's
Yeah.
boring. It's putting in the reps. It's understanding once you identify. So what I recommend is 1 gram per pound ideal body weight. So if I'm 110 pounds, then 110 grams of protein is easy. I'm going to hit that first meal. Let's say I'll hit it with 50 grams of protein and then another 50 before for dinner, right? Not right before I go to bed, but dinner. And then maybe I have another smaller protein meal in the middle. Super easy, but you do have to understand how much you are getting, because the majority of people will be, just based on the data set, will be way under eating dietary protein.
So the other thing I thought was interesting about your book is it's not just about looking fit and being hot and finding a partner. Because I do think one of the best ways, to find a partner in business or in relationships is just, if you become interesting and exceptional, you find interesting and exceptional people. Like, networking is not really necessary then, because they come to you, right? You're not struggling with a lack of really interesting friends.
No.
They come to you. And, but that's not the only reason why it's really important to eat more protein and to lift. In your book, a lot of it is about living longer, right?
And better.
So talk to me a little bit about why you think muscle and thus protein and lifting weights are really important for just living a longer, better life.
Well, again, it's all about the quality. What is the outcome that you want? It's great if you're exceptional in business, but if you don't have a framework where you're strong and capable physically, what does that matter? I have never met someone that has said to me, I would exchange a successful business for my health. There's not one person. There's not one person that, given a dire circumstance, would not give up their business to make sure that they are healthy. And before I tell you about muscle and all that stuff, people, the entrepreneur will say, I don't have time. If they do not have time for the things that we are talking about, how are they going to have time for being sick? They're not. And all the things that come with it. It is an absolute non-negotiable. Now, when you think about why skeletal muscle, again, this is about becoming anti-fragile. This is all about America 2.0. This is becoming a better, stronger version. And the only way that there's a very simple formula as to how to do that. That is to be strong and physically capable. There are a multitude of ways that we put that input in, but the two primary ways are train fucking hard, nail your diet. 100% of people eat. Get the protein in. You don't need to be a carbivore. All of that stuff is distraction. This idea where I can't, or it's this last meal and I'm just celebrating, that's all distraction from an ultimate goal. Training hard, is it necessary? You could get into the nuances and people will say, oh, you could train with lower weights and still get hypertrophy benefits. All that is true. From a fundamental perspective, muscle is currency. You can't buy, you cannot pay for, and you can't bargain for. It's actually currency you have to earn. And the only way to earn that is by instilling habits and becoming a certain type of person. So I would say, don't let yourself off the hook. Yeah, you want to go to yoga, yoga's great, but put yourself in a position where you have to physically challenge yourself. I think for the entrepreneur, that's really important, because an entrepreneur might be like, I don't care that muscle is the organ of longevity, but you do care about having good brain function. You do care about having good immunity. You do care about picking up your kids or your dog or your car. I mean, you might not pick up your car, but maybe our husbands would pick up their car, but the rest of people may not. But you do care about showing up and being a contribution to society. Skeletal muscle is that. You don't want to be sick and have to be a burden to somebody else.
Yeah, 100%. I was kind of giggling. I was at this conference called the Network State and talking to a young man whose entire focus was longevity. And one of the attendees, little in his face, and was like, he was talking about, this contraption he was wearing around his neck and all of these scientific procedures he was doing. And looking at the gentleman, he didn't look especially healthy. And so, the guy said, hey man, do you lift weights, work out? And he was like, no, not really. And he was like, do you eat protein
or what? And he said, no, not really. And I kind of giggled because I feel like if you're around a group of traditional tech entrepreneurs, they will tell you until they are blue in the face about their blue blocking light glasses.
Right. It's all about the hack.
Oh, but they won't go throw up a bunch of weight and eat a bunch of protein.
You know, I've thought about this a lot because in today's society, we're looking for quick fixes. It's all about efficiency. But is it? What is the cost of that efficiency? There are some things that it's very valuable to be efficient, like grocery shopping and cooking. I mean, okay, but training and putting in the time and actually going through a period of suffering, that's valuable. That doesn't need to be efficient. It needs to be effective.
What do you think about Brian Johnson and the fact that he doesn't eat any meat?
An interesting choice. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of supplements and a lot of stuff and a lot of lasers.
So you would still say, even with all of those additional things you do, you're choosing, no, I'd rather just do animal protein as opposed to.
I mean, because it's not just about the protein. It's about the food matrix. It's about bioavailable iron and zinc, selenium, creatine, carnitine, and serine. You shouldn't need to take a million different supplements. We didn't evolve that way.
What about Ozempic?
But it's great. People,
and taking it.
Yeah.
What do you think? I haven't done it because it freaks me out. I don't like anything that pharma sends.
I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. I will tell you that now I did my fellowship in obesity medicine. So I did a fellowship in geriatrics, nutritional sciences. And I ran an obesity clinic for 2 years. And part of the research that I did at WashU in St. Louis was all obesity based. One of the things that they did a lot of gastric bypass. They did a lot of sleeves. They did not use a ton of these GLP agonists. They did not use Ozempic, semaglutide, tirzepatide. They didn't use these things. These medications are more effective than surgery. There's less downtime. Now, your original question is, what do I think about it? And then we can talk about the uses of who should be using it. I think there's a place for medication. I think that it's unfortunate that we have the need that we do, right? If the majority of our population is overweight. We have to do something about it because the downstream effect is catastrophic. We've seen it. The wider the waistline, the lower the brain volume. We need a smart America. We need people smart that are going to show up. So these drugs work. Ozempic is not my favorite. There's too many side effects. I'm much more interested in Mounjaro or tirzepatide. These drugs have also been around for a very long time. Semaglutide, Ozempic has been around, 20 years. It's not a new drug. These are not new drugs.
Why are we just hearing about it so
Because they are now being able to be used off-label and now they're approved for weight loss, which they weren't. They were approved for diabetics. You hear that it slows gastric emptying, right? That's like the big thing. And you hear it has these negative effects on skeletal muscles. So the two biggest things that I hear, is that it affects gut function. Guess what? It's supposed to. That's what the drug does. It slows gastric emptying. I don't think that the medications should be criticized for doing what they're supposed to do. The other flip side of the coin is people will say, well, Ozempic affects skeletal muscle, which muscle is the organ of longevity. I have not found a mechanism of action. The reason people lose lean tissue on these medications, which is the other big criticism, is because they are not training and they're not eating dietary protein. It's not hard. Now, what do I think about the utilization of these drugs on people that are, quote, healthy? I would say, well, what is healthy? How are we defining healthy? So we think that it's okay. Anything less than 30% body fat is okay. Is 25% body fat okay? I mean, I think that we're probably too lenient.
What should it be?
It depends on the person. For me, I can give you an example for me and like for your husband, we're genetically leaner, right? So let's say hey, Chris, let's say Chris naturally exists at 8% body fat, right? Dude, go punch yourself in the neck. Same with my husband, Shane.
Yeah.
Right? You guys can just go play in traffic. But if he were to be 14% body fat or 12% body fat, he'd have a little extra fat on him and that might not be so healthy. But we have these strict guidelines where we say, okay, well, now you're 30% body fat. Now you're overweight. Now you have a problem. But what if that person naturally sits at 14%? Now, is a medication a quick fix? Yes. Is that going to be long lasting if you don't change habits? No. Have I seen these drugs work for individuals with emotional eating, with alcohol, with drinking problems? Maybe not alcoholism, but with cravings and desires? Absolutely. Have I ever seen anything work more effectively? No. Now I'm going to throw something else out there. We can prescribe drugs to make individuals less overweight, but testosterone is not FDA approved for women. You can still prescribe it, but it is fascinating to me that anabolics and certain medications that could affect muscle mass aren't legal to prescribe. I'm not saying that testosterone is one of them, but these other anabolic agents, physicians, for the most part, it has to meet a need, aren't prescribable.
And why is that?
I don't know.
It's government regulation. Do you think they should be?
Within a knowledgeable physician, yeah, I think that there are anabolic agents that can affect sarcopenia in a positive way, that have been used for burn victims, that can actually help augment skeletal muscle. Yeah. Versus targeting body fat. Yes, I do.
What about women and getting lean and lifting? Like there are all of these things that I remember I was told early and used to believe. If I eat too much protein and I lift too heavy, I'm going to turn into Hulk. Right?
I mean, I look like the Hulk, right?
Yeah,
I mean, let's
call you, what does Emily call you? I can't remember. But basically, I call
tiny
you
tornado.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly. Well, you're like Ant Woman. You can lift like 4x your body weight because you do weigh probably 110 pounds.
Yes,
You're the only woman
do.
I would ask that on a podcast, for the record. No, you don't look like that at all. But maybe explain to women, like, how would that happen? Does that really happen?
No, it doesn't happen. Do you know a woman that is lifting heavy and being bulky?
No, except if they try really, really hard. They have to try really hard.
I actually believe that there is this inherent discomfort that we are so culturally indoctrinated that women don't feel comfortable going into the weight room and just throwing around weights, maybe because it's not what they've done. If you walk into any gym, where do you see the women? Truthfully, maybe not here in Austin, but where do you see the women?
Yeah, the machines.
Exactly. Or the cardio equipment. Where do you see the guys?
Yeah, they're by the weights. Yeah, it's true.
So it may be more of a cultural perspective.
Yeah, socialization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video the other day by Matt Walsh, who I like, but he was talking about a young woman that was really, quite fit and had tattoos. And his assertion was men want feminine women that are not muscular and with tattoos. You and I both have tattoos and are kind of muscular. And I don't think either of us have ever had a problem in that regard. But I think it's a disservice that men would push women to this idea of feminine, which is just really thin and not a lot of muscle mass in them at all. But I think we're almost like culturally going back to that. Like I can feel the murmurings of it. Have you seen that also?
I think we're at a precipice. I think, people will ask about the book, and the book is really, so the book Forever Strong is really about a mission. It's about changing the conversation, understanding that people can be strong and that women can be strong and be capable and feminine and do all the things. I think that the world is ready. The world is ready, that it's not the bro science anymore. It's not the being, jacked with the skinny tank tops. There is going to be a shift to strength. The world's ready for that.
Well, you do a couple things that I thought was really cool. You're a doctor, you're an author, you run businesses, you're also a mom of two. And so when I was FaceTiming you the other day, it was like, what 5 a.m. or something? It was early. And your little one was in the gym with you every morning. So maybe talk a little bit about how you integrate being a mom and a parent and physicality.
It's a good question. I will say that I don't make excuses. We don't make excuses. There's a million things that I could have said. I'm not going to go because my daughter's there. We don't have help in the morning. You name it. And there's a lot of parents out there who are probably listening. You better believe that my kid gets up. And it's not that I force her to get up. And by the way, I have 2 little ones. My husband works 100 hours a week. Yeah. He's up at 4 and he trains before he goes to work.
He's a surgeon too, not a dummy.
Right. Question. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, honey. No, he's a really smart guy. But he gets up at 4 and he trains before he goes to work. My kids, they work out with us. They work out with me. She comes to work before she goes to school. She comes to work out and they love it. I would have to say is that habits become very difficult to break. When you have habits in your 30s and 40s, if you don't address that, you will spend the next 3 decades on that hamster wheel of habit breaking. And we've all seen that. If you can instill habits early, then those kids don't have to go through that experience of finding themselves physically, of feeling comfortable in their body, of knowing what to eat. You make it a part of their life and you eliminate that struggle. There's also a responsibility to a parent. I trained through both pregnancies. I was extremely ill. I carried a barf bucket with me through the first pregnancy. I was sick for 10 months. But the mom creates an epigenetic environment for the child. The healthier and fitter the mother is, the healthier and fitter the child is. So for the moms out there or the people that are becoming parents, it has to be, you would never want to set up that child in a way where they have to struggle. For that, let them struggle with business, let them struggle with other things. Don't have them struggle physically. Teach them to push themselves physically, but don't take that struggle off the table.
Yeah, I've struggled with this verbiage constantly that says, well, my body's telling me today that I don't want to, or
my body feels like this, and I feel it in Austin a lot because it's a touchy-feely land. But there's a lot of people here who are really fit, and then there are a lot of people here that I think have been told a bunch of lies. And the lies are that it's actually a giving thing to let your body slip into being overweight, unhealthy, and not something to be proud of, but in fact, you become proud of it because somehow society says that that's okay. And if we look at the math, the numbers just say you're going to live not as long, you're going to make not as much money, your likelihood to have disease and not just longevity, but not
comorbidities.
Yeah. And, it's not just lifespan, it's health span, right? Is going to be so much worse. And so I think it's really important that a book like this gets out here and that people talk about it in circles where people aren't obsessed with fitness, because everybody in fitness loves you, is obsessed with you, but people who are in business too need to also listen to the same thing.
Yeah. And again, the best entrepreneurs, the best business owners, their house, their physical house, it's in order. And, when you think about this idea of listening to your body, and I might get some pushback on there, but, I'll tell you what, human beings are totally predictable. And the entrepreneur, even more so. Late nights, early mornings, pushing themselves hard. I guarantee you are not going to, I'll bitch and complain about wanting to train every single morning. I'm not shocked by it. I know tomorrow morning I train at 9 a.m. So I train with a bunch of people. We train outside. It's brutal. We're going to be pushing sleds and doing air dines. You think I want to do that? I already know I'm going to start complaining about it. But it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I'm still going to do it. I'm not going to listen to how I feel about it. Okay, fine. If I tore my hamstring or if I can barely move, but you have to know yourself. You have to know that you are going to try to talk yourself out of it and not be shocked by it.
Just do it anyway.
The other aspect about entrepreneurship that I have found and seen multiple times, and this doesn't directly relate to the book, but it is something that touch on a little bit in the book. I think that especially entrepreneurs, they fail to recognize this because, again, what we're talking about are habits that become incorporated into a livelihood, a way of being. And there's this really fascinating thing that I've seen. So I've been a physician since 2006. I've seen thousands of patients. And, as my career progressed, the types of patients that I've seen have now, they are a certain archetype. As high as someone is going to go. So let's say you create a mastermind, you buy a business, you're so amped up, you're working on this launch, this digital product, as high at the pinnacle, as high as someone is going to go, that is their point of vulnerability. That is the moment that they are going to look to eat something, look to buy something new, look to whatever, porn, whatever it is that they are vulnerable for. At the peak of a sale, at the peak of their performance is a spot of vulnerability. As high as that individual is going to go, the depth and as low as they are going to go is going to be a mirror. So when an individual is at their pinnacle, as high as that feeling gets is as low as they're going to go. And that is the second place of vulnerability for an entrepreneur. And why, as a physician, do I care about that? Because that's where they fall off. Increased stimulant use, increased alcohol, maybe they buy a new car, maybe they buy a new house, maybe they become depressed. I see it all the time. The question becomes, how do you not just navigate the physical, but how do you plan for the mental ebbs and flows of these neurotransmitters, of just the way in which humans respond? And again, this isn't talking about protein or muscle, but this is the second thing that I always see with an entrepreneur, especially early on in their career, is that if they can step into that high with a little bit more neutrality, they won't be vulnerable to vices. And that's so important because the vices.
I have two other things I want to talk about. One is you've become my go-to, hey, should I worry about this person? I watched this video the other day, which they can show, that shows that things like even my Lululemon pants contain what's called forever chemicals. You'll have the smart word for it. They can cause hormone disruption and even potentially cancer. How much do we need to worry about these external chemicals as well? Or do we have to worry about them less if we focus on fitness and eating the right amount of protein?
That's exactly right. I would say that the unfortunate truth is that we live in an environment that's totally polluted. The air that we breathe, the Wi-Fi, whatever it is, it's impossible to control. We have to control what we can, and that is a handful of things. Do I think that we need to worry about forever chemicals? Probably, and we probably have to worry about drinking out of plastic. How much of an impact is that going to make? It will probably impact an individual less if they have other things straight in their life, like their training, their nutrition, their detoxification. There's other things, but yeah, the world we live in is toxic.
So do I have to throw away my Lululemon pants?
No, I still have mine.
Okay, fine. Good. I like that.
Just wear underwear. You're fine.
Yeah, I do. I always found that weird. Women don't wear underwear.
I
under
do
the fit.
too.
I'm like, lady, I know what happens down there. That's not good. That's not what we should be doing. The other thing that people are obsessed with right now is seed oils.
Yeah.
And so, my husband's a psychopath. And so he's like getting all the stores that don't use seed oils. And that's the only place we order from. And I'm on board. So I'm, great.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Like if you have a list of like what you care about, it seems like it's like lift heavy shit, eat enough protein, eat less processed stuff. But where's seed oils and Lululemons on
That is
pants?
hilarious. I have never thought about that because people talk about seed oils collectively.
Right.
How about this? If you're not eating processed foods, you don't have to give a shit about seed oil. The reality is, what kind of seed oil are we talking about? Are we talking about canola oil? Are we talking, you name it.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Do I think it's a huge problem? If you're not eating processed foods, probably not.
What about these guys that all they eat is fruit and meat? Like Paul, who we both know that I like. Like, is that the way that we have to go?
Nobody has to do anything. And also the body is totally diverse. There are certain eating patterns that are great for people. Meat and fruit, I think, is great. We eat a ton of that in our house, but we also eat rice. We also eat potatoes.
Thank God. Okay.
Everything is
I could
okay.
have a salad?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I don't think I could do like cheeseburgers and mangoes for breakfast every morning.
No, probably not. Although my daughter probably could just totally crank that down. What we're going to see is if we can pinpoint what people need. I think the next frontier is the gut microbiome, which people have been talking about a lot. But, as we get better at that, we will see that certain individuals do better with certain kinds of diets. And you'll really be able to pinpoint that.
Yeah. You probably get a lot of hate on the internet for having some of these controversial takes. What do you think the detractors say? So what are the people that are like, I don't think that, muscle mass actually matters with lifting weight? What do they say, and what do you say back to them?
So let's talk about where the pushback comes from.
Yeah.
This is actually very funny. The Pilates community and yoga community get very angry with me.
Oh, interesting.
Which I had no idea that lifting heavy stuff and training was so controversial, but apparently it is. And here's what I would say. That yoga and Pilates are great, but is that going to allow a football player, Navy SEAL, or anyone else to build an optimal amount of muscle, including you and I? Probably not. And you will hear a lot that would be adequate. And I would say probably no. Not that it's not good, but is that the primary way that you are going to focus on hypertrophy and strength over time? No. The other thing is individuals, I don't think that there is an argument about muscle mass and strength. Right? I think that's something that we can all agree upon. Where there will be some pushback, which may or may not be so relevant, is this idea that the mass doesn't matter. And people will say, well, skeletal muscle mass doesn't matter. It's all strength that matters. But we haven't been directly measuring skeletal muscle mass. We are making statements, and we have a huge body of research that doesn't directly measure the tissue. There are now new ways that they are going to be measuring it. It's a D3 creatine. It's a tagged creatine. It's a different way, which will measure skeletal mass directly. And they will begin to see, because in these earlier studies, they see that mass and strength matter. So that's the other thing. The other thing that people will say is that you don't need animal products. You can get everything you need through plant-based proteins. That's absolutely correct. You can get protein equivalents. But again, we are talking about what about protein as a food matrix? Iron, zinc, creatine, all these other things that we need. And as individuals age, they're not eating more, they're eating less. So the food matters.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So basically, if I think about it visually, you have like your quinoa. Well, you wouldn't even have that. You'd have some sort of synthesized protein that was created that's equal to a chicken breast. But if you were to show a grid in the chicken breast and a grid in the thing that's synthesized, you're not getting those same.
The metabolomics are different.
Exactly.
The metabolomics, the breakdown of the product is totally different. And while the protein content might be the same, the actual, again, the metabolites are different.
Definitely not something that's talked about enough. This is so cool. I'm so excited for you on this book and the next ones you're going to come out.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go to deal of the week. Honestly, I'm a little bit embarrassed about this because this is the one on Ozempic and I thought about taking it. We all, I think, have those extra couple pounds on us. And I'm over here seeing celebrities go from thick with like 4 C's to heroin addicts overnight. So it's fucking tempting, right? So I thought, what is the numbers behind Ozempic? And I realized that they might actually create the first $1 trillion drug stocks. So the two companies, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, could be $1 trillion drug stocks. The reason why is they have basically a few similar categories of weight loss drugs to Ozempic. And they're driving huge revenue for both pharma companies. Now, how much? This blew my mind. Novo is having the highest record profits of all time, $13.9 billion. And Ozempic alone accounted for like 41% of that, which makes it the 4th highest sold drug of all time. Other pharmaceutical companies could be a threat in the future, but for right now, Eli and Novo appear to be on a path towards $1 trillion with a couple drugs that apparently make us all skinny. The worst part to think about it is how much does it cost to make? Well, Yale says that Ozempic costs less than $5 a month to manufacture, and yet we're getting charged $1,000 a month for this drug. While the exact same product can be bought in Canada for $155 a month and $59 a month in Germany. So they want to feed us McDonald's for cheap, so we pay $1,000 a month for drugs, which is insane. Now, I think we should be careful with Ozempic for a lot of different reasons, yet we can't even find doctors who are willing to talk about the potential problems on it. Rachel and I are working on it. We'll report back. One person talked about the fact that women have been left out of the demographic research on this, so maybe this is something for us to dive more into. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but tell me if you want to hear a whole episode on Ozempic. The reason is because if you do, we want to have a couple different professionals talk about Ozempic, when to use it, when not to use it, should celebrities be using it as well. Okay, so for our outro today, how about I leave you with Ozempic's hottest hits on pop culture. This is TikTok, where Travis Scott dropped a banger, supposedly about his ex, Kylie Jenner, saying, she doing Ozempic, trying to be different, trying to be a newer woman. Nah, that shit will look iffy. Need her thick. He need her to move something iffy. I'm sure he does it better than I do. You can see the video here.
Doing Ozempic, trying to be different, trying to be a newer woman.
But the moral of the story is Ozempic is not only pulling profits from Americans like crazy, but also breaking into pop culture just about everywhere we go. All right, that's a wrap. You know that we always bring you the deal, so why don't you seal the deal with us? Subscribe and follow this podcast wherever you are. It's the only thing we ask of you in this place is for you to follow along so other people can hear the word. I just want to tell you thank you for being a builder in a world of consumers. You are a big deal to us, and we'll see you next time.
That I have it, you know that I got it. No need to look all in a bag. Starting like this because I work so hard. I'm the best. I only speak facts.
Layoffs come from bad leadership, and they are coming because I think a lot of companies these days have pretty bad leaders, and companies without good leaders will fail. Trust is so low. Some people think our elite are literally lizard people. 12 million Americans believe this. We do not trust our leaders. So we as leaders have to do better. They're trying to do one thing, which is short-term gain because they don't want to have short-term pain. If you want to be a great leader, don't be nice, be honest. You aren't sweet, you need to be effective. So how do you do that?
I love this podcast because I love talking to friends about how they made their millions and helping business owners solve their problems. It's fulfilling. I love sharing all the secrets. But when I can't meet in person, there's only one tool I use. It's called Riverside. Riverside ensures I can talk to someone anywhere in the world, recorded in 4K, so the quality of the video matches the quality of the humans you're listening to. Riverside records separate audio and video tracks so we can easily cut out those awkward interruptions that are my least favorite part of interviews. They have in-platform editing software based off a 99% accurate AI transcription. And if that's not simple enough, they take AI one step further for their show notes. It summarizes your entire content into an SEO-optimized description, and chapters all automatic, saves me a ton of money. So you can use Riverside for podcast interviews, panel discussions, presentations, webinars, more. And best of all, it's simple. Try Riverside for yourself with link in the description. Use code Cody for an exclusive discount. I get a deal, you get a deal.
Hey, and welcome back to those who put in the work. It's Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast. For those who don't just want to be rich, but free, and do what it actually takes to get there. Today, I am on one. You guys want to get amped up and go down a rabbit hole with me today? Because I think, don't you feel like all of us need a little rant lately? So this is what I'm calling rant time. Okay, here's the thing. If you want to create wealth, change the world, build a business, be a big deal, you need to lead people. And yet most people couldn't lead a starving horse to a hay pile. I don't know. I want to talk about lessons I've learned so you can steal my homework. Let me just preface this with one thing, though. I have built many 8 and 9-figure businesses. And we have a big portfolio, but I am far from perfect, so I like to steal from experts who are much smarter than I am. So when we get into leadership, we're going to talk about some crazy shit that's going on in the world today. We're going to talk about how to apply this, especially to you. But we're also going to talk about why most leaders suck, and we're going to steal the homework of the best so that you can be the boss that you wish you had, or you can even coach your boss to be the boss that you wish you had. Speaking of that, this podcast is exactly why the contrarian community exists. We bring what I see as no-nonsense truth about business ownership when others won't. Instead of getting rich quietly, we believe in getting rich together. So our business mentorship program provides step-by-step support to buying, building, and selling businesses. The idea is we create owners and challenge the system as opposed to just theorize like we all did at university. If you're serious about getting freedom and ownership, you should reach out to us at contrarianthinking.co. We'll figure out the right spot for you. CEO story time. Elon Musk is a G. Can we all just go back to this video of Elon Musk telling New York Times exactly how he really feels? Can we just watch this for a moment and revel in it?
There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
I feel like at this point we should cue sunglasses coming down over his face and whatever that rap theme music is. But another way that Elon is a G is this memo he wrote to his employees that we try to embody at Contrarian Thinking, Main Street Holding Company, and all the other companies that we have. I gotta read this to you. So he starts out, and I'm gonna abbreviate it with talking about 3 things: progress, precision, and profit. Elon Musk says progress, precision, and profit are what matters. For progress, he starts by explaining their goals, then goes on to say, any Tesla department or supplier that is unable to do this will need to have a very good explanation why, along with a plan for fixing the problem, and present that to me directly. That's every vendor at Tesla. If anyone needs help achieving this, please let me know as soon as possible. We're going to find a way or make a way to get there. First of all, love that line. Make a way to get there. Next, he goes on to talk about precision. He says some parts suppliers will be unwilling or unable to achieve this level of precision. I understand that this will be considered an unreasonable request by some. That's okay. There are lots of other car companies with much lower standards. So smart, he's like positioned himself better than the competitors. They just can't work with Tesla. Also amazing. It's like, oh, you're good enough to work with us? Then he goes on to talk about profit, the last segment, with one of my favorite quotes. He says, there is a very wide range of contractor performance, from excellent to worse than a drunken sloth. All contracting companies should consider the coming week to be a final opportunity to demonstrate excellence. Any that fail to meet the Tesla standard of excellence will have their contracts ended on Monday. So good. Drunken sloths. Then he gets into the meat of it. And I get just like hot and heavy actually thinking about this part and meetings. So he says, by the way, here are a few productivity recommendations. 1, excessive meetings are the blight of big companies and almost always get worse over time. Please get all large meetings unless you're certain they are providing value to the whole audience, in which case keep them very short. Also, get rid of frequent meetings unless you're dealing with an extremely urgent matter. Meeting frequency should drop rapidly once the urgent matter is resolved. Walk out of a meeting or drop off a call as soon as it's obvious you aren't adding value. It is not rude to leave. It is rude to make someone stay and waste their time. I've never done this in my life, but I think I need to start. Second, don't use acronyms or nonsense words for objects, software, or processes. Anything that requires an explanation inhibits communication. We don't want people to have to memorize a glossary just to function at Tesla. Next, he says communication should travel through the shortest path necessary to get the job done, not through the chain of the command, aka any manager who attempts to enforce this chain of command will soon find themselves working elsewhere. I think this part's brilliant because this is what you find. I'm finding this in one of my companies right now. I've got an incredible performer, won't say their name one way or the other, who just, wants to grab it all so tight and doesn't want anybody else touching their stuff. And that's a problem because they get hot and bothered if somebody reaches out to one of their employees. Not okay, will not allow us to win. Then he says, a major source of issues is poor communication between departments. The way to solve this is allow free flow of information between all levels. If in order to get something done between departments, an individual contributor has to talk to their manager, who talks to a director, who talks to a VP, who talks to another VP, who talks to a director, who talks to a manager, who talks to somebody actually doing the work, then super dumb things will happen, which seems true. It must be okay for people to talk directly and just make the right thing happen. In general, always pick common sense as your guide. If following a company rule is obviously ridiculous in a particular situation, such that it would make for a great Dilbert cartoon, then the rule should change. And I love here how he uses in leadership, like really graphic imagery, drunken sloths, Dilbert imagery. They're not going to work at Tesla because there's lots of other shitty car companies, all of which we know. And then finally, he says, if there is something you think should be done to make Tesla execute better or allow you to look forward to coming to work more, which is the same thing in the long term, he says, please send a note to me. And then he ends with, thanks for being such a kick-ass team and accomplishing miracles every day. It matters. We are burning the midnight oil to burn the midnight oil. Elon. So good. I think most of young adult loneliness in this country would be solved by a group of people getting in person, solving big problems together. And I think we forgot that that's why we used to want to work together. It wasn't just to make a paycheck. It was because it was something worthy of building. Now, at our companies, I say, if you're not relevant, leave. If you don't send a brief, start. How can we waste less time? And I think the team overall needs permission, your team needs permission, or maybe you do, to say the quiet part out loud, especially some people that aren't that comfortable. So hopefully this helps you. You can say it's from a multi-billionaire. No, not Cody, Elon Musk. All right, I want to talk about one other thing. Let's talk about my friend and investor, Bill Perkins, and why he's very rich. He said a line to me that I've repeated a lot, but bears repeating here. I asked him once why he was so much more successful than other people in many different ventures. And he thought about it for about 10 seconds. And then he said, I just move faster than everybody else. By the time they've thought about it, taken it to investment committee, thought about a name, I've already made a decision, made 3 mistakes, and found a better way. In fact, Sam Walton, CEO and founder of Walmart, said this line that then Jeff Bezos stole exactly. He said, we get into some of the doggonedest, knockdown, drag-outs you've ever seen, talking about his management meetings. But we have a rule. We never leave an item hanging. We will make a decision in that meeting, even if it's wrong. And sometimes it is. But when the people come out of that room, they would be all aligned, and it would be hard-pressed for you to see which ones are for it and which oppose it. Even better, he said, once we've made that decision on Friday, we expect it to be acted on in all the stores at Walmart on Saturday. Decision on Friday, acted on Saturday. What we guard against around here, Walmart, is people saying, let's think about it. We make a decision and then we act on it. So good. My too long didn't read here is, if you want to be a great leader, don't be nice, be honest. You aren't sweet, you need to be effective. You don't want people to like you. You want people to become better because you are around them and you are helping them win. And this will mean that people actually really don't like you. It means people will leave your company. It means people can't keep up with you. It means people get upset. It means people don't think that you are their best bud. And that's okay. In fact, I think it's what's needed. One of my favorite lines is that we do not do what we want. We do what is required. So in my last weekly compass, I shared an update on how we do updates and readouts. And it was very succinct. Your readouts should be good, be actionable, be brief, and then you should be gone. And that's what we are all here to do. We are here not for easy, because easy leads to misery, but we're here to build something bigger and better, but as effectively and efficiently as possible. That's why in this instance, I actually stole from John Wooden, who is one of arguably the best basketball coaches of all time. So John Wooden's kind of famous for this one story, which is that when he was younger, he was given by his dad a $2 bill and a white card with a poem written on it by Henry David Thoreau. And this card encompassed this 7-point creed that Wooden had handed down. And he then progressed his entire life saying that the most important advice he ever got was written on this tiny card. Because of that, I create at every single one of my companies something called a creed, which is basically what are the words that we live by. Because I think in a business and in life, if you keep the spirit, the stats follow. And often we obsess on the scoreboard and what we're doing in our job with a bunch of TPS reports. But in reality, if we have the spirit behind us, we'll be able to hit those statistics. This is my contrarian creed. I'm going to walk you through 13 of them. And the idea is there's 13 because who needs luck? Every single week, I do something called a weekly What's Up. And this starts at the beginning of the week on Monday with all of my teams. I get together and I give them a little 5 to 10 minute presentation and I highlight one item from this creed. Here's what the creed is, and it took me a few years of compiling this together. Number 1, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. Number 2, be a great fucking human. Do what's right, even when it hurts. Number 3, how you do anything is how you do everything. Number 4, we do the dirty work. Number 5, your word is your contract. Number 6, we are Archimedes, find your lever. Number 7, winners want pressure. Number 8, we want your weird. Better weird than boring. Number 9, your job isn't done until the job is done. We work the problem. Number 10, assumptions are for assholes, find the truth. Number 11, less words, more mating. Number 12, even our notes are worth stealing. Make every creation a mini masterpiece. And show me your results, not your intentions. So why do I go through this? Well, in this day and age, there are a ton of fake leaders, like these guys.
I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge something just before we go into the Q&A. And that is very soberly acknowledge that a few weeks ago, I was asked to go to a friend's 50th birthday. And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated. And I made a bad mistake. Instead of sitting down, I should have stood up and walked back, got in my car and drove back. The spirit of what I'm preaching all the time was contradicted, and I got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach and not practice. And I've done my best to do that.
This is, by the way, Gavin Newsom, a real peach, apologizing for eating a $1,000 plus dinner without masks when he was locking the state of California down tighter than places in Germany. And he decided that he could have his own special party. Hashtag never forget Gavin Newsom. These guys are all over the place, which is why probably we don't trust leaders. And also, make this world make sense. How did this guy think it was going to be okay? But you and I, we are builders, and builders are built different. We know people trust leaders less because of guys like that. I mean, think about this for a second. Trust is so low in leaders. Some people think our elite are literally lizard people. Samuel, watch this.
Everything they teach you in school is a lie. You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people.
Now, this sounds crazy, but apparently something like 12 million Americans believe this, and Vice even did a segment on it. Now, I don't know about lizard people. Maybe some of these people wouldn't surprise me so much. Look at that face. That still seems like a pretty big jump, but it does tell me we do not trust our leaders. So we as leaders have to do better. So today, building isn't enough. As St. Anthony said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood and assign them tasks, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. So how do you do that? I think that gets to my idea for the deal of the week. But first, in the comments, tell me if you like this rant. I think I want to add a few of these to a repertoire in tandem with a bunch of interviews. All right, and now the deal of the week. One truth. Your ultimate leverage is your customers. So my contrarian creed I gave in the weekly WhatsApp last week was this. It was the give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it and I shall move the world, which is Archimedes, one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's basically like, how do I do more work while working less? So most companies actually ignore their greatest asset, their customers. I mean, think about it. Have you flown on an airline lately? Fucking miserable. It's like they don't even want you there. Companies outsourcing customer service, wild. I go back to those who have made billions and see what they all have to say was the key to their success. And an underrated hack in that is only take advice from those who have actually achieved the thing you are trying to accomplish. So I go to Sam Walton, CEO of Walmart, one of the best business leaders of all time, who said, and I quote, "There's only one boss, the customer, and he can fire everybody in the company from me on down simply by spending his money elsewhere," which is probably why his company has a market capitalization of $500 billion. And then look, the same exact idea from the founder of Home Depot, who said, the key is not to make the sale. The key is to cultivate the customer. At Home Depot, cultivating the customer is much more important than creating a bottom line. So we teach our associates that if you can save a customer money, do it. We're not looking to fleece the customer. If I can save them $100, why not do it? That reflects one of our core values, their core values at Home Depot, caring for the customer. Care for them today, they'll be back tomorrow. I know this sounds commonplace, except it's not, which is probably why they have a market capitalization of $359 billion. So this week, I celebrated our customers, and I can show you these screenshots right here, which are kind of cool. I put on the weekly What's Up, and I said, look at all of these people. Look at Zach buying this company. Look at Nadia from Sydney, Australia, and highlighting those who actually gave us positive reviews and who did the damn thing. I guess a question for you would be, when was the last time you celebrated your real boss, the customer? Because you win when your customers win. You never want to forget that. Okay, let's get to our contrarian idea of the week. It's not a pretty one, guys. It is that layoffs come from bad leadership, and they are fucking coming, because I think a lot of companies these days have pretty bad leaders, and companies without good leaders will fail. This is premium meme content right here. Look at this meme. It says, hello, I'm new to the stock market, but is it good when the Intel CEO starts praying? Intel is down, 29% today, 15,000 about to be laid off, dividends suspended, foundry business hemorrhaging billions, unfixable lake chip problem, ARM taking over laptop market, totally missed the AI hype train. Intel is struggling, which is sad actually, because Intel, for those of you who are maybe not as old as I am, this is the company that started a revolution in chips, and not Pringles. I'm talking about chips in your computer. It's like one of the American marquee companies. And yet this company used to be at its peak and survived harrowing experiences under one of the best leaders of his time, Andy Grove, and now is suffering under a different type of leader. Andy Grove's kind of interesting because one of my favorite stories about Intel is from like the mid 1980s. At that time, Intel's main market was in memory chips. So remember back in the day, well, you still have it when you go to Apple and you get your computer and you say how much memory you want the computer to have. So that was their big market. But the Japanese stormed the market with way better quality levels and nearly got rid of Intel. Intel was competing with the Japanese producers who had better quality, lower priced, mass produced parts because they had created the Toyota way, which was the assembly line. It is at this point in time that Andy Grove, with another one of the executives, famously said he looked out of the window from his office at the headquarters of Intel and remarked, if we were kicked out and the board hired a new CEO, what would he do? The answer was he would get out of the memory business. And then they did. And because of that, Intel became one of the most profitable businesses again and has lasted for decades. The problem is most leaders suck and lack leadership. They're trying to do one thing, which is short-term gain, because they don't want to have short-term pain. And all short-term gain ever leads to is long-term misery. And I think Intel's a perfect example of that. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see that all over the world as we continue to see the stock market get hammered. And companies like Intel that aren't keeping up, they're going to die a lot faster. I also love Andy Grove's advice on managing your career. He said, you got no lifetime guarantee of employment. You're in charge of your career. So think of yourself as a CEO of your career, and you're at a company of one, right? You're your own boss, and you're responsible for the outcome of the company. You have to see what's coming around the corners. And just like he did with his company, you have to think, am I keeping up with whatever the next hype is that could kill my company, one way or the other? Andy Grove was also a G. Andy wrote one of my favorite business books of all time. It's called Only the Paranoid Survive. So keep those eyes peeled, because I do think he was right. Only the paranoid survive. And speaking of paranoia, don't be greedy. Share this pod with the needy. Hit that share button and let's make this thing go more viral than Justin Bieber, who apparently turned into a lizard during a live concert. Guys, just make this world make sense. Also, in the venerable words of the world's most hated, but also maybe most followed man on the internet, Andrew Tate.
I find myself super funny. I find myself super funny.
All right, now let's hear from my other top leaders. That would be you guys. My top G's, as our buddy Andrew Tate would say. By the way, I've been DMing with him on Twitter. Is it weird to say I think he's actually kind of a nice guy? All right, you guys can murder me in the comments. Let's answer some of your questions. I'm going to start doing this in every single one of the podcasts. So first, we got Diana Karina 1. What advice would you give a person stuck in a 9-to-5 wanting to become an entrepreneur? One word, deal making. Do you want to know why, whether you like him or not, he might become the president of the US, Donald Trump? Because he wrote a book called Art of the Deal. He is a deal maker at his core. He understands how to turn the things that he wants into things that other people will do the work for him to execute on. I think most people in life think negotiation, think deal making is too esoteric. They can't touch it. And so they don't spend any time learning it. And that's why we created an entire community and university, all with this idea of how do we turn people into deal makers? Because deal makers make money. There's also this clip I love. Do you guys see this? It's about yappers, how yappers make money. I actually think deal makers make money. Yappers, they blow out their vocal cords for the deal makers who are in charge of the entire company. All right, good question. Thanks, Diana. Man_Vic. Hi, Cody. Thank you for all you do, for making your content free. You're welcome. I'm glad I met you online when you started your podcast. I'm experiencing a revolution in my life, and I must confess that it started with your videos podcast. Amazing. I'll make this quick. You post so much quotes on Twitter, which I follow closely, and I must say they're inspirational. Question is, do you always think that people can read their minds into them? You could hear someone quote you and then interpret it in a way you never thought of. So basically you're saying, how do I feel when people misinterpret me on the internet, Mike, I think. Naval has an amazing line that I loved that said the biggest mistake any performer could make is to look at the audience. And I think a lot of the reasons why influencers, podcasters, celebrities flame out is they try to do an actual performance. They're not who they are. They don't mean the things that they say. They don't stand behind them. And they have the backbone of a spiny jellyfish, which is no backbone. And so I don't really worry about it that much. I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to ignore what people think about me, keep being what I define as a good person, and know that the truth will shake out one way or the other. And I think you guys can do the same. Fuck 'em. Trolls live under the bridge. We don't need to go down there. All right, we got Jonah Hersam 9202. What do you look for in a business partner, and what are the pros and cons of having one or more? One piece of advice: no 50-50 partnerships. Never accept marriage. It's no. Most partnerships end. And so in my mind, you need to have one person who's in charge. You need to have a great exit plan. Start with the end in mind, because you will likely get divorced. All right, DV.C3700. What's your skincare routine? Because that skin is, you can't see it, but I'm making like an okay face. It's basically saying I have good skin. Thank you, ladies and gents. I actually don't right now. I have this crazy thing called perioral dermatitis, something like that. That's what Gabrielle Lyon tells me I have, which is basically really cute. A mixture of like a bacterial and fungal infection. Sexy. And I don't know, they apparently you can get it from different products that you use, sleeping in different places. My husband also does jujitsu, and I do some stuff on the mat, so I guess you can get it from there too. Anyway, gross. So it's not the best right now. She gave me some stuff to clear that up. But when I'm not a walking petri dish, I use something called Osea. I don't know, I'm not sponsored by them, but it's really clean, organic product line. And then I like coconut oil on just about everything. I do get, to be honest, really crazy lasers on my feet, expensive ones. I can tell you which one if you guys ask in the comments. Okay, Jeff Tice 8534. What advice would you give to an empty nester looking to change careers after 50? Bet on you, get fucking going. Who cares? 50 is young, man. I mean, if you go and look at the top billionaires, most of them did not become billionaires until far later in age. Most millionaires didn't hit it until their 40s. So you got nothing but time. All right, I got one more. Weaponry Fitness 22. How to get an LLC going. This one's easy. We have an investment in a company called Doola, D-O-O-L-A. I believe if you go to Doola and you input Cody or Contrarian, you should get a code for something free for your first LLC. So go ahead and go to Doola. We invested in that company. Okay, y'all, tell me how you feel about this segment in the comments. I'm picking questions from this podcast for next week to answer, so go ahead and drop them below. Also, this is by far our smallest platform right now. So if you want to engage with us, this is probably the best way to do it. I think we're going to be able to answer basically all of the questions we get at YouTube, the Big Deal Podcast. Thank you for being here. The truth of the matter is you are a big deal to me. And the only way we grow, by the way, is if you share this pod. So don't be greedy, share the pod with the needy. Do me a solid too. Share this pod on Instagram and tag me in it to show me you're not also a succubus of a leader gobbling up all the goodness for yourself. All right, love you guys. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you again next week. Oh, for those of you still here, this podcast is exactly why the Contrarian community exists. We bring you what I consider to be the top education program in ownership and buying businesses in the world. Instead of getting rich by ourselves, we get rich together. So our business mentorship program provides step-by-step support to buying, building, and selling businesses. We're committed to creating owners and challenging the system. So join us for the fight for financial freedom and community through ownership. Go to www.contrarianthinking.co and you can see all the ways you can get involved. Until next week.